There's a quiet revolution happening right now, and it's not being talked about on the news. It's not trending on social media. And honestly, most people are too uncomfortable to even name it. But I see it every single day in my practice. Senior women, strong, intelligent, emotionally experienced women are walking away. Not dramatically, not bitterly, but calmly, peacefully. They're simply not interested anymore. And the question everyone keeps asking is, why don't senior women care about men anymore? But here's the truth they never expected. The one that changes everything once you really understand it. It's not that they don't care about men. It's that they've finally stopped needing them to feel whole. And that shift is everything. Because for so many years, maybe even decades, there was this underlying hum of effort. The emotional labor, the adjusting, the wondering, am I enough? Is he happy? What does he need from me now? And then one day the hum stops. Not because of anger, not because of resentment, but because something deeper has awakened. A kind of emotional clarity that only comes with time, with experience, with having lived long enough to finally ask the one question that changes everything. What do I actually want for me? So if you've ever felt this shift inside yourself, or if you've wondered why you're suddenly less interested in the chase, the compromise, the convincing, stay with me. Because what I'm about to share will make you feel seen in a way you didn't know you needed. Let me tell you what happens when a woman reaches a certain stage of life. She starts to notice something strange. All those things she used to worry about, what he thinks, whether he'll call, if she said the right thing, wore the right outfit, smiled enough, stayed pleasant enough, they start to feel distant, not because she's bitter, not because she's given up, but because she's finally arrived at a place where her inner world is more interesting than her need for external approval. This is what I call the shift from seeking to being. And it's one of the most profound psychological transitions a woman can experience. You see, for much of our earlier lives, we are conditioned, sometimes subtly, sometimes not, to organize our worth around how we are received, especially by men. Did he notice me? Does he want me? Am I valuable in his eyes? And the truth is, that's exhausting. It's like running a race where the finish line keeps moving. But senior women, they've run that race. They've crossed 1,000 finish lines. And somewhere along the way, they realized I don't need to run anymore. Not because they can't, but because they've discovered something better. They've discovered the dignity of being rather than the anxiety of seeking. And once a woman knows what that feels like, once she's tasted the peace of not needing a man's attention to validate her existence, she doesn't go back. She might still enjoy companionship. She might still appreciate romance. But she no longer needs it to feel like herself. And that, my love, is freedom. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something just because you wanted to, not because it might please someone else? Because that question, it's the beginning of everything. Here's something most people don't talk about, but I see it all the time. There's a specific kind of loneliness that comes early in life. It's loud, it's urgent. It makes you reach for your phone at midnight. It makes you say yes when you mean no. It makes you tolerate things you shouldn't, just to avoid the silence. But then there's another kind of solitude that comes later. And this one is calm. It doesn't panic. It doesn't scramble. It doesn't mistake aloneness for unworthiness. This is what I call emotional clarity replacing emotional urgency. And senior women have it in spades. Because by the time a woman has lived through a few decades of relationships, good ones, bad ones, complicated ones, she's learned to distinguish between what she actually feels and what she's been conditioned to fear. She knows the difference between wanting a partner and needing one to avoid discomfort, desiring intimacy and settling for attention, feeling lonely and mistaking that for a problem that only a man can solve. And that discernment, that clarity, it changes everything. Because now, when she considers letting someone into her life, she's not asking, will he fill the void? She's asking, will he enhance what's already here? And if the answer is no, she doesn't force it. She doesn't fix it. She doesn't convince herself it's fine. She just walks away. Not coldly, not cruelly, but calmly, because she's learned that peace is more valuable than presence, that her emotional space is sacred, and that she'd rather be alone and whole than partnered and fragmented. Now, I know this might sound radical to some people, maybe even selfish. But here's what I want you to understand. Choosing yourself is not the same as rejecting love. It's simply refusing to abandon yourself in the name of it. So let me ask you this. What would change in your life if you stopped treating solitude like a problem that needs solving? Because once you answer that, you'll understand why senior women don't care about men the way they used to. They've learned to care about themselves more. There's a narrative we've all been fed since we were little girls. It goes something like this: a woman is incomplete without a man. A life without partnership is a life half lived. If you're alone, something must be wrong. And for years, maybe even decades, many women believed it. They shaped their lives around it, made compromises for it, stayed in situations that didn't serve them, because the alternative felt like failure. But then something shifts, and this is where it gets really interesting. Senior women begin to see that companionship is a choice, not a cure. Let me say that again, because it's important. Companionship is a choice, not a cure. It's not a remedy for emptiness. It's not a bandage for low self-worth. It's not a solution to existential loneliness. It's simply an option, a preference, a possibility. And once a woman truly understands that, the entire game changes. Because now she's not approaching relationships from a place of lack. She's approaching them from a place of abundance. She's not asking, can you complete me? She's asking, do you complement the life I've already built? And if the answer is no, if a man brings more stress than joy, more drama than peace, more demands than reciprocity, she doesn't stay. Not out of pride, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because she's finally learned what younger women are still discovering. That the right relationship should feel like an expansion, not a compromise. A deepening, not a diminishment. An invitation, not an obligation. And if it doesn't feel that way, then it's not the right relationship. I've had clients tell me, Dr. Elina, I thought something was wrong with me because I just don't care anymore. I don't care if I meet someone. I don't care if I'm single at 70. And I always say the same thing, Nothing is wrong with you. You've just finally stopped letting fear make your decisions. Because that's what it really is, isn't it? So much of our earlier desperation for partnership was just fear in disguise. Fear of judgment, fear of loneliness, fear of being left behind. But senior women, they've faced those fears. They've walked through them. And on the other side, they found something better than a relationship. They found themselves. So I'll ask you, what would you do differently if you truly believed you didn't need anyone to be whole? Because the moment you believe that, everything changes. Now let's go a layer deeper. Because there's something happening beneath the surface that most women don't even realize until it's already shifted. And it has to do with authentic desire versus conditioned programming. Here's what I mean. For most of a woman's life, she's been told, implicitly and explicitly, what she should want. She should want to be desired. She should want to be chosen. She should want to make a man happy. She should want marriage, partnership, togetherness. And many women spend decades chasing those things, believing they came from within. But then, somewhere in her senior years, a woman starts to ask a different kind of question. A quieter question. A braver one. Do I actually want this? Or was I just taught to want it? And that question, my love, is the beginning of everything. Because once you start pulling that thread, you begin to see how much of your earlier caring wasn't really yours. It was inherited, absorbed, programmed. You cared because you were supposed to care. You pursued because you were supposed to pursue. You made yourself smaller, quieter, more accommodating, because that's what good women were supposed to do. But now you're old enough, wise enough, brave enough to ask, what do I actually want when no one's watching? When no one's judging? When I'm completely free to choose? And for many senior women, the answer is surprising. They realize they don't actually want the same things they used to chase. They don't want the drama. They don't want the performance. They don't want to manage a man's emotions while neglecting their own. What they want is peace, autonomy, the freedom to live on their own terms. And if a man fits into that, wonderful. But if he doesn't, that's okay too. Because the need to have a man in her life, just for the sake of having one, has dissolved. And what's left is something so much more powerful. Authentic choice, not obligation, not fear, not conditioning, just pure, honest, self-directed choice. And that, my dear, is what truly liberated women look like. They're not angry at men. They're not rejecting love. They're simply rejecting the idea that they need it to be whole. And once you see that distinction, you can't unsee it. So let me ask you, how much of what you've been chasing in relationships was actually yours? And how much of it was just the echo of someone else's expectations? Because once you know the answer to that, you'll understand why senior women have stopped caring in the way they used to. They've started caring about what's real instead. And now we arrive at the deepest truth of all. The one that surprises even the women who experience it. Because there's a shift that happens in a woman's heart as she matures. A quiet recalibration. And it has to do with what she values most. When we're younger, we're often drawn to intensity, passion, chemistry, the thrill of the chase, the fire of an argument followed by the heat of reconciliation. We mistake turbulence for depth. drama for connection, chaos for love. And we stay in relationships that exhaust us because we think that's what it's supposed to feel like. But senior women, they've lived through that. They've survived the roller coasters, the emotional whiplash, the sleepless nights and tearful mornings, and they've come to a powerful realization: peace outweighs passion. Not because passion is bad, but because without peace, passion becomes prison. They've learned that real intimacy doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it doesn't destabilize. Real intimacy is steady, it's soft, it's safe. It allows you to breathe. And once a woman knows what that feels like, she becomes incredibly discerning about who she lets into her life. She's no longer impressed by grand gestures or sweet words. She's watching for consistency, for respect, for emotional maturity. She's asking, does this person add to my peace, or does he disturb it? And if the answer is the latter, she walks away. Not because she doesn't care, but because she's finally learned to care about the right things. She's learned that a quiet, dignified life is not a consolation prize. It's the reward. And she's learned that she doesn't need fireworks to feel alive. She just needs to feel like herself. So when people ask, why don't senior women care about men anymore? The real answer is this: they do care. They just care differently now. They care about substance over flash, respect over romance, peace over performance. And if a man can meet her there, in that calm, grounded, emotionally mature space, then yes, she's open. But if he can't, she doesn't try to change him. She doesn't try to fix him. She doesn't sacrifice her peace to accommodate his chaos. She simply moves on, because she's finally understood something that took a lifetime to learn. Her peace is not negotiable. And once a woman reaches that place, she becomes unstoppable. Not because she's hard, but because she's clear. Not because she's closed off, but because she knows her worth. So I'll leave you with this question. What would your life look like if you protected your peace the way you once chased passion? Because that, my love, is where true freedom lives. If you've made it this far, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're not cold. You're not too independent or too picky or any of the other things people might say. You're just finally awake. And that awakening, it's one of the most beautiful things a woman can experience. Because it means you've stopped living for approval and started living for alignment. You've stopped shrinking to fit and started expanding into who you really are. And that is not something to apologize for. That is something to celebrate. So if this resonated with you, if something I said made you feel seen, understood, or just a little less alone, I'd love for you to let me know. Leave a comment below and tell me, what's one thing you've stopped caring about as you've gotten older? I read every single one, and I promise your words matter here. And if you're new, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Hit that subscribe button, because we're building something special, a space where emotionally intelligent, self-respecting women can gather and grow together. And if this video helped you in any way, share it with another woman who needs to hear it. Because this message, it's not just for you. It's for all of us. I'm Dr. Elina, and I'll see you in the next video.